The Dallas Cowboys offseason is underway, and head coach Brian Schottenheimer has a new right-hand man. Christian Parker makes the flip as the defensive coordinator from Philly to Dallas. Meanwhile, the Cowboys front office is getting ready for the NFL draft with the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. We're live from Indy to break it all down for you. They've already made one move this offseason, retaining running back Javonte Williams. How does that bring some speed and power to the running back position this year? And speaking of speed, we are live from the Brickyard, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where we will get you set for the Grand Prix of Arlington in just a few weeks. Stick around and buckle up. It's time for the Blitz.
Prescott back, set, slams wide open 50. Pickens one-handed hurdles a man to the 10.
This is Jerry Jones with the Dallas Cowboys, and we just drafted you.
Indianapolis, Indiana, home to the 2026 NFL Combine. It is also home to the greatest spectacle in racing that takes place every May, the Indianapolis 500 right here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a.k.a. the Brickyard. Welcome in, everybody, alongside Nicole Hutchison. I'm Kyle Youmans, and there's no better way to start the offseason for the Dallas Cowboys in the first episode of the Blitz than right here at the Speedway capital of the world, or the racing capital of the world. It's an incredible venue.
Man, my first time here, and shout out to your friends you made connections with to get it done. I mean, it's beautiful. I heard the fans, it gets sold out here, 350,000 fans. A lot of fun here.
No doubt about it, and the Cowboys have already had a lot of fun trying to piece together an offseason, and it really has a lot of focus on the defensive side of the football. They hire Christian Parker as the new defensive coordinator, and he has now filled out his staff. And as you take a look at what the Cowboys have done this offseason from a coaching staff standpoint, where do you feel like the strengths are on the defensive side of the ball?
Easy answer. Mine is teaching. You talk about Orion Smith, who even told me that he spent a lot of time with a lot of higher education people getting his master's at Penn State, and he said that was something he was able to learn different techniques in a classroom setting. And so that's something that I feel like all these coaches kind of have mentioned, right? Making sure that these guys are understanding the scheme correctly, right? Getting them up in front of the room, in front of guys, and using voiceovers for film sessions, different things like that they're trying to use for these teaching techniques.
Yeah, and that's what Brian Schottenheimer in the front office really said was the number one quality they wanted to see in a defensive coordinator. They also wanted to see some confidence, and they wanted to see some scheme changes. That's what Brian Schottenheimer and new defensive coordinator Christian Parker talked about earlier this offseason.
When you've been involved with, different people along my journey that I've learned under as head coaches and defensive coordinators, number one, and then the diversity of scheme that I've been involved with, and then you kind of become accustomed to what you're comfortable with in your own ideas. You like certain things, you don't like certain things, what will work, what won't work. I think as you kind of get involved with different people, you kind of form your own identity. So when you have that opportunity, you know what you want to do. And I've kind of gone through that process internally for a great deal of my career. So I've prepared as much as I possibly can at this moment. The first thing is we're going to be multiple. I think that whenever you form a defensive structure, it's about the players that you have. So core principles, we'll be a 3-4 by nature, but, 4-3 spacing will be appropriate, 4-2-5 in nickel, different front structures, coverages behind it. But I would say being multiple is probably the most important thing about it.
6 of the 9 guys we hired on defense have NFL experience. I think I go back to 2 things, energy and connection. I can see the excitement of our players. Marquise Bell was in today. DeMar Overshone came in yesterday. Like, the guys are excited. They're excited about Christian and the staff that we've put together. I think, again, we left no stone unturned in the search. A couple guys from college, a couple guys that have been coordinators before at different levels of football. And at the end of the day, man, if you can teach and motivate these guys and get them to know you care about them, these guys have shown they will run through a brick wall for you. And I think that's what we're going to get.
One other thing that Christian Parker said in that press conference is that great players make great coaches. Who are some of the defensive guys that Dallas could possibly target in the upcoming NFL draft?
It's simple. One of the most, or two of the most talked about prospects in this draft class, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs. They both have position fluidity. They allow to, of course, disguise on the back end. It's just going to take a lot of mental load. They're both intelligent as well. So that's something that Brian Schottenheimer mentioned that he wants.
And they both played in Ohio State, or at Ohio State in Columbus this past year as a part of a really great defense for the Buckeyes. We've got a loaded show for you here from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. When we come back, we've got a couple things later in the show, including the Java House Grand Prix of Arlington as IndyCar comes to the streets outside AT&T Stadium. Plus, when we return, there's a lot of free agent chatter at the NFL Combine. Who's coming back? Who could be on their way to Dallas when we return?
The Dallas Cowboys Blitz, presented by Blockchain.com, is brought to you by AT&T. Connecting changes everything. Geico. It feels good to save big. It feels good to Geico. And by Blockchain. Invest like your icons with Blockchain.com. This segment is brought to you by AT&T. Connecting changes everything.
Yeah, I feel like I'm the same player I was last year. I felt like just mentally, I feel like I'm on a different level.
And he breaks free. Williams to the end zone. Touchdown, Cowboys.
Javonte Williams back in Dallas. The star running back signs a 3-year deal to remain on the Cowboys offense moving forward. Welcome back in to the Blitz here from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And Javonte Williams was a sight for sore eyes out of the Cowboys backfield last year. 1,200 rushing yards. But where was he most valuable for Brian Schottenheimer and that Cowboys offense?
Well, aside from his production, career numbers for him, I think it was the pass protection that stood off the tape. I think about the fourth quarter comeback win against the Philadelphia Eagles, week 12, I believe, in November. Nate Thomas gets blown up by a defender. Javonte Williams works across the line and picks up a defender. Dak Prescott connects with George Pickens, deep ball, and they end up winning that game. So I think it's pass protection, but it's also the rushing performance as well.
Yeah, and I asked Brian Schottenheimer about the running back room, and he feels like the veteran presence by Williams helps the other guys step up in their game as well, like Jaden Blue, like Malik Davis, Hunter Lipke, and some of the others in that Dallas backfield. Williams was the first of many free agent possibilities to return to Dallas. 16 unrestricted free agents. They have multiple restricted or exclusive rights free agents to keep an eye on as well. Williams and Pickens, probably the number 1 and number 2 names on that list. You have a couple guys from the 2022 draft class like Sam Williams and Jalen Tolbert that are at the end of their rookie deals. And then, of course, you got to look at special teams as well. Brandon Aubrey has been a big topic of conversation over the last week, especially here in Indianapolis. Where do you feel like Dallas has to prioritize these possible returning free agents? Who's the next man up?
Kyle, I think we all know this answer. It's George Pickens. You talk about a wide receiver that came in, had a career day as well. 1-2 punch with George Pickens, led this offense to being one of the best in the NFL in 2025 and helping Dak Prescott pretty much put on MVP numbers, right? So, you got to maintain that offensive weapon, maintain the consistency on that offensive side of the ball like you did with Javonte Williams.
And that's exactly why he was the priority. Yeah. And Stephen Jones, the front office, were very clear from the get-go. They get it done even before we show up here in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. Speaking of, when we come back, we go on site at the NFL Combine. Hear from Tommy Yarish and Patrick No-C Walker as they break down what the Cowboys' ins and outs have been here in Indianapolis. More of the Blitz when we come back after this.
This segment was brought to you by AT&T. Connecting changes everything. This segment is brought to you by Reliant, the official energy provider of the Dallas Cowboys. This summer, train where stars are made at Dallas Cowboys youth football and dance camps. Athletes of all skill levels, ages 6 to 16, are invited to learn from former NFL players and the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Visit dallascowboys.com/camps to learn more.
Welcome to the Indianapolis Convention Center, the hub of the 2026 NFL Combine. Tommy Yarish here alongside Patrick Walker. Patrick, one of the busiest weeks of the year, and it's not just for these NFL draft prospects, it's for all kinds of business dealings around the league with the Cowboys as well as other teams. But let's talk about the draft for now. And starting with Dallas, obviously defense is a position of need. When you look at the roster as a whole with Christian Parker, the new defensive coordinator, coming in, Where do you feel like the most important need is on the defensive side of the ball?
Well, I think that the most important need, Tommy, is always going to be getting after the opposing quarterback. The Cowboys have to figure out how to rush the passer. It's something that they performed very poorly in last season, and now you have Christian Parker coming in, changing from a 4-3 to a primary 3-4. Now you have outside linebackers. You have to get the right personnel there. They talked about moving Maris Leofau down there. They love his length. He's going to have to bulk up a little bit. I think Donovan Ezraku will be great there in an outside linebacker role. But as you're looking at these draft prospects, you have to address the edge, and everything else plays off of that.
No, absolutely. And the outside linebacker room, which is now going to be led by a Georgia Bulldog in Chidera Uzo-Diribe, who had an excellent time in Georgia, and they were certainly getting after the quarterback, now hoping that can happen here in Dallas. And the Cowboys have not been shy about where they're looking in this draft class. And you look at the formal interviews they have had, an overwhelming majority of that has come on the defensive side of the football. Not very many offensive players they've talked to. That's not to say they couldn't take an offensive player in the draft, but it certainly seems like they're leaning towards the defense.
As they should be, Tommy. I mean, you don't have a second-round pick. You don't have a third-round pick as we have this conversation. So you're going to have to make those 7 picks count, and 2 of those 7 picks are in the first round. Day one's going to be massive. So I anticipate the Cowboys being very willing to double-dip on defense. You need your edge rusher determined as far as that position goes, but guess what? You also need your secondary repaired. Linebackers as well, but Savon Revel, we know his path. Deron Bland, he's coming back off of injury. You don't know what else you really got there. Kalen Carson still in development. So, yes, you have to focus, key in on defense, and that's what they're doing with these meetings.
Yeah, they're doing it with the meetings, and you've gotten to watch it in some of the drills, too.
Yeah.
And early standout, I think, of the week is fairly easy for everybody to say. Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State, is a guy that's been mocked to the Cowboys a lot at 12. After his workout, I don't know if he's even going to get to 12. He was fantastic, an incredible vertical jump. He ran a good 40 time. He's a freak athlete. And who else has stood out to you here so far at the Combine?
You know, there are several that have stood out. Obviously, when you talk about Bulldogs, you have to talk about like a C.J. Allen, although he's not participating here at the Combine. But these are guys that you want to keep an eye on, especially with Chidera Uzo-Diribe in the building. But you look at Ruben Bain. He stood out, but not necessarily in a great way. His arm length has been a red flag for a lot of scouts and teams and GMs as they look at him. 30 and 7/8 inches for the arms. That's a little bit problematic, you would think. But I would say that if that's the reason that you don't select Ruben Bain, then you're not doing your job. I say don't overthink that. Granted, that's not something that you can coach up. Arm length is arm length. But I think that that's a guy that stood out, not necessarily in a great way, but can still overcome that if you put him on the field for you.
And some things that NFL personnel have talked about are maybe moving him inside and towards more of a 3-technique defensive tackle kind of role because of those shorter arms. Another guy that I'll point out before we get out of here, David Bailey, the edge rusher from Texas Tech, weighed in super light, but he runs really fast, incredibly athletic. And so a lot of guys that are cementing themselves into these top 10, top 15 conversations. Now it's just a question of who Dallas is going to take at 12 before ultimately they get to pick number 20. That's going to do it for Patrick and I. Now we're going to send it to Kyle and Nicole with a much cooler backdrop at IndyCar.
This segment was brought to you by Reliant, the official energy provider of the Dallas Cowboys.
The news is finally official.
Big celebration. We're going to have a front row.
Now it's going to roar.
IndyCar Grand Prix of Arlington.
Mr. Jones, what an entrance. Nice to see you.
Well, it's great to see you.
Mr. Jones, Pato Award. Nice to meet you.
Absolutely wonderful to shake that hand. I was so excited when I saw him lay this thing out.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's go up and take a look at it from the air. What do you think?
Let's go. We may get bumped a few times like you were in that car.
I don't mind.
All right, here we go. Guys,
Wow, look at that.
Stay as close along the track as you can. Yes, sir.
The access of IndyCar is incredible.
It's very well set up for it to be a huge experience.
That's why I appreciate IndyCar so much.
Pato O'Ward, the darling of the IndyCar series.
There's pit road right in front of the stadium.
The bird's eye view, when they get the shots of up here, the cars look super cool when they all kind of dive in.
Now we are racing!
Everybody that's going to be here that isn't a fan now is going to be a fan.
We're excited about this thing. It's going to be something that will be here for days and years to come.
Take a look at that trackside view. It is absolutely stunning. Arlington is gearing up for speed. We've got a lot to look forward to in that Java House Grand Prix of Arlington. Welcome back into the Blitz, Nicole Hutchison and Kyle Youmans. And Kyle, I've got to ask you, the expert here, what's the most challenging part of that track?
Well, I think it's the fact that Randall Mills Road turns into the longest straightaway that we're going to see on the IndyCar calendar this season. 0.9 miles, 225 miles per hour into a 90-degree right-hand turn. There is no harder turn, at least in my opinion, on this circuit, because you're going to have a braking zone that immediately turns right, and you've got other cars to navigate around as well. 14 total turns on this circuit. Of course, it's in the streets of Arlington with Globe Life Field, the Texas Rangers home in the background, AT&T Stadium as well, a split pit lane, which is also very cool, just like the streets of Detroit. And there's a couple different elements of this track. 14 turns is tied for the most in any street circuit on the IndyCar calendar, and that straightaway is going to be a monster to tame.
Wow, and who are some of the drivers to watch?
Well, there's three of them that I have my eye on. One is Joseph Newgarden, a two-time Indy 500 champion, a two-time IndyCar Series champion. Of course, he was one of those drivers that didn't have the 2025 he envisioned. Went to the streets of Nashville in the final race of the season, won that race on the streets, and tried to end it on a high note. Maybe he can continue that momentum to the streets of Arlington. Alex Palou has been on a tear over the last few years. 4 of the last 5 IndyCar Series championships have gone to Palou, not to mention he won the last Indianapolis 500 as well. And then I like Pato O'Ward as well. He's a Mexican national driver who has called Texas home in the past, but we'll see if he's able to find a home in a brand new circuit on the streets of Arlington as well.
Well, it'll be a lot of home. Well, home to Pudge, who is a Hall of Fame baseball player for the Rangers, and of course home of DeMarcus Ware, Hall of Famer for the Dallas Cowboys. They will both be grand marshals. But here's a couple of dates. March 13th, practice begins. March 14th, qualifying rounds begin, and the race is actually kicking off on March 15th. But a lot more coming up on the show. We wrap up next. We've got off-season dates, and we got to look at Kyle Youmans' mock draft. How about that? Can't wait. We got more coming up after the break.
Closed captioning is brought to you by the Texas Lottery. Dallas Cowboys scratch tickets from the Texas Lottery are here. Play today. To watch more Dallas Cowboys content on your connected TV, download the Cowboys Now app on Amazon Fire, Roku, and Apple TV. The Dallas Cowboys Blitz, presented by Blockchain.com, was brought to you by AT&T. Connecting changes everything. Geico. It feels good to save big. It feels good to Geico. And by Blockchain.com. Invest like your icons with Blockchain.com.
I was actually learning about Mally last night. It's like the richest man in the world. He was a king.
This exhibition talks about Dr. Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and it merges their stories.
Black history means a lot to me because I'm part of a fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and Black history is American history.
When we talk about Black history, you know, our identity, it's bigger than surviving slavery. You know, we were kings, we were queens.
Martin Luther King and that dude from Kudu.
Oh, cool.
When you get kids in places like this, you know, it expands their mind.
Inspire change.
Just concluded Black History Month. Shout out to Devarian Overshone and Donovan Ezeraku for checking out the African American Museum. Welcome back into NFL Combine coverage here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Nicole Hutchison, Kyle Youmans, and getting straight into it. So there's a lot of notable offseason dates. Of course, we are in the team's franchise tag period. That's February 17th through March 3rd. And of course, February 23rd through March 2nd is the NFL Scouting Combine. And March 9th through the 11th is the legal tampering period. That's where teams can reach out to other teams to agree to terms with players and before the league year. That's 4 p.m. March 11th. And last but not least, the NFL Draft in Pittsburgh is April 23rd through the 25th. Kyle, haven't seen your mock draft yet. What's on there?
Yeah, this is Mock Draft 2.0, but the first one for the Blitz, and really anything outside of the first overall pick is in question. I think one of the big things early is we're going to see a lot of the trenches addressed. You've got Ruben Bain from Miami going number 2. You've got Francis Mauanoa out of Miami, the offensive tackle. He goes number 3, and then it's a hodgepodge of defensive players, mostly scattered throughout the top 10. I have the Cowboys settling with Sonny Styles out of Ohio State. He falls to pick 12. They need linebacker help, and he brings team speed speed to that level of the defense that the Cowboys haven't had in the past. You mentioned him earlier. He's in my mock draft. Plus, I think they need to address the edge rusher spot heavily, especially changing from a 4-3 to a 3-4. TJ Parker out of Clemson with a big body defensive end can possibly do that for the Cowboys. Lots of prospects on display here in Indianapolis. Hope you enjoyed it here from Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the first episode of the Blitz this Cowboys offseason. For Nicole Hutchison, for our entire crew, and everybody who helped this happen at IMS, I'm Kyle Youmans saying so long. We'll see you next week with more of the Blitz, the Cowboys offseason report.